You don't need good advice. You've been ignoring good advice your whole life. Welcome to Shitty Life Advice. Hello, friends. Today's episode is all about triggers. Have you ever found yourself in a relationship where the word triggered was being used as some kind of sick psychological warfare to get out of things or to excuse their bad behaviors? In a weapon or in a trap, a trigger is a small mechanism that sets off a chain of reactions. What is an emotional trigger? Well, today on Shitty Life Advice, we're going to find out. I am joined by two of my dearest friends, MC McDonald, PhD. Hello.
Hello.
And Tracy Benjamin, mom and artist.
Hey. Womp womp. No womp.
This has been an exciting morning here so far. We had a technical issue about a second ago where I'm sure Reese was dying over there, which we sorted before we went live, so it doesn't matter.
Not
and
triggering.
Also, my introduction was full of misinformation. So to set us up, we have our very own MC McDonald to tell us the groundwork of what is a trigger.
Let's first define it correctly. When something in our perception evokes a memory that hasn't been processed and filed away appropriately, this can trigger a stress response in the body. That stress response gets us to a place of reliving instead of remembering. That's a trigger. A trigger is not an excuse to avoid something for the rest of your life. A trigger is not something that you can weaponize against other people. And a trigger isn't a word that means any emotion that you are not into feeling at the moment. A trigger is a word for a real neurobiological event that is very specific.
Now, if I'm wearing the glasses, for those of you who are new, that means that I should not be taken seriously. So what I'm hearing you saying is that a trigger is a sign that you are currently fucked up.
False. Let's talk really quickly about memory files, right? So anything that happens to us gets filed away in the file room in our brain, which is the hippocampus, and it gets organized: narrative, emotional content, and meaning. When things are going normal, we have all systems online and we are able to process and file basically anything that happens to us. When we are significantly overwhelmed, we get a file folder, but it is a disorganized file. So either the narrative is disorganized in some way or it's missing pieces, the emotional content is either outsized or not there, or the meaning tags don't get filed. When you have a trigger coming forward, it means that there is a folder in your hippocampus that needs to be processed. It is not a sign of dysfunction, weakness, or disorder. It's a sign that your brain was working appropriately in the moment of threat, and now there's some work to do.
But what I am hearing is that rather than trying to get the world to bend to your
Yes.
trigger, like maybe we have heard from time to time,
Yes,
we are talking about something that is a sign of work that needs to be done.
100%.
So you can move through the world in a non-disordered fashion.
Yes, a trigger is not a sign you should avoid something forever, and it's not a sign that all the people in your life or the world need to conform to what's going on in your emotional life.
Before we begin, we have gradually improved this show a tiny bit each time. We have 3 visual improvements in this episode. If you spot them, add them in the chat.
Ooh, I like this.
Yes.
Easter
So if
egg.
you can spot the improvements each episode, please add them in the chat. And remember, if you'd like to support this show, to like, share, and subscribe, and comment would also be helpful. Let's begin with stories, anecdotal stories of triggers for us. Tracy, you've been awfully quiet. Do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Sure. I'll tell you about some of my triggers. One of them is when I get a phone call from my dad. That's like a trigger immediately. I feel like I'm in trouble.
What happens in your body?
It's like, oh shit. I lose my breath. What else happens? Oh yeah, my heart races. I feel like I did something bad and I have to be on the defense. So that's one of my triggers. I also realized that my mom used to trigger me terribly. Oh, no. She used to, she would like try to tell me something and be like, I know you don't want to hear this, but I know you're not going to like to hear this. And then I immediately was like, nope, I don't want to hear it.
And then you would just like blank out.
Just like shut down. And I didn't want to hear what she had to say. So like those qualifiers to me are kind of triggering.
So that's an excellent description, both of what happens and then what you're feeling in your body, which is going to be a huge thing we're going to talk about today.
Oh, good. Please
Connecting to
help
your
me.
MC, how about you?
I struggle with yelling. And when someone yells at me, I often totally blank out, just like you described.
Yeah.
So my heart rate will ping, like it will be 182, even though I'm sitting at a desk or whatever. And I will not be able to remember what we're talking about, even if it's something I'm really invested in. And sometimes I will laugh inappropriately, which always is the worst thing you can do in a moment of conflict.
Guilty.
Yeah.
of that too.
Do you know why that happens?
Why?
It's the stress response is trying to relieve some of the pressure.
Oh.
And so you laugh because laughing, actually, we're going to talk about this later too, is a way to complete the stress cycle.
Okay.
And so it's getting rid of some of the stress hormones. But other people do not like it, especially if they don't understand what's going on.
Laughing inappropriately is a trigger too.
Is it?
Yeah.
To other people, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They get really
Not good.
enraged. Yep. Mm-hmm.
I have many things that annoy the shit out of me.
No kidding.
But for the sake of using the word triggered correctly,
Thank you.
in
Yay.
this episode, I am going to be very specific with what I would call a trigger, like a altered consciousness experience. Happens to me when I am in an argument and I've hit my threshold for the argument and I need a, say, palate cleanser. I need to go take a walk around the block and I can feel myself getting activated. If I am not able to leave that situation, I will say or do anything to get that space. I will say the meanest, nastiest things. And it is something that I obviously want to improve and work on. For a lot of people, one person having the controls to just say, cool, we're taking a 10-minute break does not work for them. Like in an argument, I think it feels like maybe the power dynamic is off.
Yeah.
But for me to be able to navigate space to calm down and come back to the conversation is top of mind for me.
That's something that I deal with. I'm so glad you brought that up because that's something that I deal with couples all the time, because so often you have one member of the partnership who needs to get away. And if they don't get away, they will feel trapped. And what you're describing is the fight response. So you're going into, I will annihilate this situation and this person so that I can get out. And it's not a rational space. You're not actually making that decision. And then the other person often has the same exact response. They have an anxiety response. They have a stress response when the conversation is put on pause. They feel abandoned. And so it feels like an impossible thing to navigate, but it's totally possible to navigate. You just have to figure out and agree on what your protocol is going to be when you reach that level.
I had two relationships that also were impacted heavily by triggers where I was not the one getting triggered, but they had horrible things happen to them at an early age. And it was Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde situation. I would end up locked in a room with them banging on a door, just saying, just please. But if you open the door, it's another 8 hours of, these were long.
Yep.
So I guess, normally, like when you think about, like, let's say the law, where it's like not premeditated, if some crime happened in a flash of rage, these episodes could last hours.
This is important. An 8-hour conflict is not a conversation, it's a hostage situation, period. That is not healthy conflict resolution. That is not going to get anyone anywhere. When you're at that level of intensity, your rational mind is not online. Nothing productive can happen.
I was at a loss. And this is a huge reason why the relationship had to end. I didn't have the tools to handle that. Like with my own experiences, it was like we would just activate each other basically, and I'd be in avoidant and they'd be in please don't
anxious,
abandon me. What the hell should one do if, we'll just start with partner, because I think partner is easier if you still have your senses. If your partner is having some sort of, is episode the right word?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is having some sort of altered consciousness, erratic,
Yeah.
not making a ton of sense.
What do you do?
What the hell do you do?
So I think in most cases, you're going to need an outside party. If you can get to a place where you are not in conflict and have a rational conversation about what your conflict strategy is going to be, that can be really helpful. So what that conversation would look like would be like, hey, so I say to people, because I struggle with yelling, if yelling becomes a part of the dynamic, I am no longer present in the room fully. And if for us to get through any conflict or any difficulty or struggle, I need to be in the room. And so when that happens, I'm going to try to flag it and say to you, I am no longer in the room right now. We need to take a 20-minute break. And then in that 20-minute span, I am responsible as the person who's triggered to get myself back down to baseline. How can I get rid of some of the stress hormones that have gone coursing through my body? How can I come back to a place of relating in a rational way? And then you check in at the 20-minute mark. And if that's not possible, again, I am, as the person who is triggered, still responsible for my emotional response. And if I'm not ready, then I take another 20 minutes. And then we continue to go back. Both members of the partnership are responsible for maintaining that strategy. But I think if it's agreed upon in a moment where you're not in conflict, and you can do this alone, with each other, or you can do this with a therapist, then you're much more likely to actually have a productive conflict in the moment. It's also great to have a protocol if you are noticing that your partner is at that level where they're about to go into an episode and they're not aware of it yet. Because we're not always aware of where we're at until we really learn the barometer that our body is.
Here's a harsh question. So in both of these relationships, we had couples therapies. We had plans in place that would go straight out the window in the altered consciousness zone. If somebody is having extreme emotional outbursts, should they even be in a relationship?
So what you're describing is abuse, and that dynamic needs to be disengaged in order for any relationship to happen between those two people. As for whether someone who has that kind of response is ready for a relationship, it depends. It depends on the relationship that they're in. It depends on the dynamic that is coming out between the two people, and it depends on how much work they're doing. It sounds like in those cases that both of those people had a lot of work to do to figure out how to regulate their own nervous system. And that's something that you do individually, but that's also something that you do in relationship. So I think it just depends too much on the situation. But I do want to mark that what you are talking about is abuse. When you've agreed upon a strategy and that strategy gets thrown out the window and you are locked in a room and or subject to 8 hours of conflict, which is hostage situation. I'm just going to underline that again.
Well, I did lock myself in a room so there'd be a door between us.
Right, but you did that in a moment of, that's a necessity move.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so see, from my point of view, it was like, wow, I had so much compassion for this person. And to be fair, us not triggered was like, let's get married really
Right,
well,
right.
which I think was what kept us together.
Totally.
But you're saying maybe going forward, that is just a non-starter for a relationship.
Which part?
If the person who I'm with can be activated, triggered.
I think if someone is
degree.
not respecting the boundary that you've set forward and the strategy for conflict, then consequences need to occur. That might look like a 3-month separation or an end of a relationship. But, just like in the 12-step world, you can't fix someone else's addiction. You can't fix someone else's trauma.
Okay. Well, this is a good opportunity to get it. We're going to continue having these topics discussed, but this is a great opportunity to remind you that you can send us mail. And if you'd like to join the conversation, you can chat live now, or you can leave us a comment. We respond to every single comment left. So please feel free to comment. We're going to our next segment, which is a rapid fire segment. We've asked our audience on the Instagram,
Instagrams.
what their trigger is. Tracy is going to go through those responses. We're going to answer whether they are or are not, in fact, actual triggers, or if they're just slight annoyances being used. And we may get some shitty life advice while we're at it. Here we go.
Also,
You're going to say something, Tracy.
I was going to tell you that you have to remind people about calling in.
Oh, yeah. There will be a call-in segment of this show.
Yes.
Stay
Call in.
tuned.
Okay. This week we have flashcards. I'm going to just go through people's triggers. Ready? Number 1. Should I show it to the screen? No. Number 1, people who do not practice what they preach.
Okay, let's start here. You know you've been triggered when you have an unnecessary stress response in your body. So if this experience of having exposure to someone who doesn't practice what they preach gives you a stress response in your body, then that's potentially a trigger. But this sounds like just annoyance.
Yeah, I was looking through these. Some of them sound like pet peeves.
Oh, yeah. I think more so than not, we're going to get a lot of pet peeves. But that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. I would say that hypocrites should be burned at the stake unless I am that hypocrite.
And then what?
And then I should experience lots of grace.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Braggy, boastful people.
This is interesting. Why is that so upsetting?
It's
when
not a
someone
trigger.
else, it's not a trigger.
It's not a trigger.
Maybe their family is full of them.
Yeah, maybe.
Braggers.
Listen, anything can be a trigger. You can be triggered by your own heart rate. So I don't want to say that anything is or is not a trigger. But it's interesting to me that somebody who's braggy or boastful, like that would suggest to me that you have trouble advocating for yourself.
Clearly, it's jealousy of their awesomeness.
Clearly.
You know, the prompt actually was, what's your trigger and what happens when you're triggered? Everybody wanted to say what their trigger was. Nobody wanted to say what happens when you're triggered.
There's a reason for this. We'll talk about it later.
Okay, let's get into what is it?
I'll give you a little peek,
Okay, give us a little teaser.
which is that we don't access regularly enough the incredible amount of information that is coming from our bodies. And that is the critical channel we need to turn to understand and regulate our own nervous systems.
What do you call the bias where you feel harsher punishment? The one that I just talked about. You feel harsher punishment for those who do
I
it?
don't know off the top of my head.
It's a logical fallacy. It's one of the classic. If you know the answer, comment below.
Okay, what else we got?
This one's one of mine. Whiners and complainers.
Okay, it's one of yours.
Yeah.
So can you say what
Like,
happens
how are
when
we
you experience
friends?
that?
I don't know. It's, exposure therapy.
Yeah.
What happens? I just want to throw my head back when somebody whines and complains. I think what it stems from is in my childhood, I was never allowed to whine or complain.
Oh.
And so it would be like, I'll give you something to cry about.
Oh, shit.
Or
Yeah.
or it would be like, you have no right. So when somebody whines or complains, it's like, it sets me off that way.
Is it possible that you just want a safe place to be able to whine and complain yourself? Dun, dun, dun.
It seems like a weak thing to do.
You've
It is super
coded
weak.
whining and complaining as dangerous because
Yeah.
in your tribe, your family of origin, it was not allowed.
Right.
So when someone else does it, you have an instant rejection, repulsion
Yeah.
response because you're like, oh, you're doing the wrong thing in the group.
Right.
I hate whining as an excuse. I love whining as catharsis.
But when other people whine to you, you love that, or
What
you love
is
to
it as
whine?
an excuse?
So it depends. If let's say we're working in construction and we're shoveling a ton of gravel, a literal ton of gravel. This is a real world example.
Okay.
If we're shoveling and you're complaining while shoveling, we're good.
Okay.
I don't mind at all.
Oh, I see.
If if you're stopping shoveling and complaining, I am like, hey, now I'm the only one shoveling. So for me, if you're still overcoming the obstacle and complain, I love to complain and whine. I love it. It's like a sigh. It's an exhale. But when my complaining becomes another obstacle to the obstacle, when I'm adding to the thing that must be overcome, that's when it approaches something unhealthy for me.
Wow.
You should just whistle while you work.
In 1880,
Is that what you do?
In my brain.
In 1880, Freud and Breuer wrote Studies on Hysteria, which is the first psychological text on trauma. And in it, they gave this method that they called abreaction and catharsis, which is when you have an overwhelming event that you couldn't process at the time, you sit with someone who feels safe and you have some of the reaction with them and get it out. You cathect. And so it's interesting that you're talking about catharsis in that way, because what you're doing, if you're still doing the work, is actually like getting rid of some of the overwhelm of the job in the moment.
Do you remember the root word of catharsis?
No.
Is that a Greek character? Is that a Greek god?
Oh, I don't know.
God, it's good. Oh my gosh.
know.
If somebody looks it up and remembers why I think
Chat.
it's such a great story, please comment below.
Don't use ChatGPT. Thank you.
I just think that that's like office cancer. Like
Ooh.
having somebody whine and complain while we're working.
It's morale
Yeah.
killing. Yeah.
I
Yep.
think I agree if it's done irresponsibly.
So when the person is using it, they're complaining and they're sitting on the sidelines and not doing work.
Yeah.
Then it's corrosive.
Yeah, or complaining, like complaint is a broad term. If your complaint is poison darts aimed at someone else, kind of different than if you're complaining that this hard thing has to get done. Like a hard thing that has to get done. Do I care how I get it done as long as it's done? I don't. For myself. That's just the grace I allow myself to have. If something hard has to get done and I get it done, I will allow myself whatever it takes to get it done. But yeah, if your complaint is a way to shoot poison darts at a coworker or to undermine the morale, yeah, sure. So I guess it depends. All right, Tracy.
Let's keep going.
Let's keep going. Rapid fire these things.
Clutter.
Justified. Next.
No, it depends. You'd need a sufficient context to understand why clutter is triggering.
We call them shit piles in my household.
Shit
And if you make
piles.
shit piles, I give up. Next.
I just want to say one more time that having an inconvenient emotion is not the same thing as being triggered.
Mansplaining.
What do you think about that?
Yeah.
I think
Tell
the
me.
superior logic and rationality of the male species, male sex, should be recognized culturally.
I think you can go pound sand.
Thank you.
Do you find mansplaining triggering?
If it's like slowly talking and telling me that this is how it is, then
Here's
definitely.
my real take on mansplaining. Actually,
You have to
just
do
interrupted her.
manspreading. You have
I
to,
am
like, spread
manspreading
your
while I
leg.
mansplain.
I need to know if that was intentional.
Yeah, that was not intentional. That was real life mansplaining. No, but actually, I think that remember when Karen was the big term?
Yeah.
That basically got turned in a way to shut down anybody of a specific age
Yep.
and race and gender. And so if you're using mansplaining to just simply not hear my opinion, go
Yes.
fuck yourself. Like royally fuck off.
Okay, that's
So-
actually a good point, because the way, how this
Dismissive.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The statement of how the difference between medicine and poison is the dose, right? Like the mansplaining in a professional setting. Like if I got interrupted once giving a paper at the American Psychological Association by someone in the audience who didn't appropriately understand the word subvert and interrupted my talk. That's unheard of. And you would only do that to a woman in that situation. That's mansplaining, and it's corrosive and problematic and takes down my authority in the moment in ways that I cannot recover. That's very different than, I don't want to hear you say your opinion, and so I'm going to call it mansplaining so I can shut you down. There is something real to the term, and then there's a whole bunch of bullshit that gets attached to it. We have to be mindful of that.
Yeah, I mean, men are probably more assertive. And so you do have more moments of dumb men asserting themselves into scenarios.
I also think that men are used to being the only ones in the room that have authority. And so the experience of women and
Here we go.
that was terrifying. The experience of women in authority position is threatening, and the threat leads to an irrational and inappropriate response.
Okay.
What were you going
Do you have something to explain?
I was going to say something snarky.
Do it.
Oh.
I've lost it.
Okay.
I've lost it. Yeah. Next.
Diet culture.
What do you think about that?
Yeah, you're a food expert.
It depends. I don't know. I haven't really prepared my speech for this.
Do you find it upsetting, like when you encounter it on social media?
I think only if I'm like actively trying to lose weight, maybe, or if I feel like I need to. But yeah, I don't really have a huge opinion on it. I just try to stay in my own lane. I don't tell people what they should eat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Next.
People making promises they can't or won't keep.
Okay, so what's at the root here is betrayal, and that absolutely can be a real trigger. I mean, anything, again, I'm just going to say that again and again and again, anything can be a trigger, but that doesn't mean everything is a trigger. So, but betrayal can definitely be a trigger. If you've been betrayed in a relationship, someone made a promise to you of fidelity and didn't keep it, and you experienced that betrayal, that can make connecting feel dangerous.
Okay, we're going in circles, I think, now, right? We're
Keep saying the same thing.
I think we're saying the same thing. So there is a poll in the chat right now.
Okay.
Should shitty life advice air at nighttime? This is something that we've talked about.
Oh.
Completely unrelated. But
After hours.
we are going to go to the call-in portion. I think we'll just keep talking until we get somebody to call
Laura,
in.
Here's
inter-
one.
oh, yes.
Sorry. Dumb questions. That's a trigger.
Is it a trigger for you?
Is that a trigger?
It's a trigger for
As
you.
a teacher, is it a trigger for you?
I try not to be triggered.
What happened? Give me an example of when you've been assaulted by a dumb question.
I'm pretty graceful with kids. When I've worked with kids, I'm good with them. I think just when people say things that are easily answerable themselves, but it's like some way to engage. And so rather than finding a appropriate way to engage, they like have just started some logic loop that we have to now jump through. I don't know.
Do you know the
I'm just going to sound like an
I
asshole.
get triggered on my website for that.
do you?
Yeah, when people ask me questions about recipes that they could have Googled.
My big
That's triggering to me.
my big internet trigger is when people demand, whether explicitly or implicitly, that I change my behavior or my expression. And there's something totally different to say like, hey, I don't like when you use that word. But if you say, you can't use that word, or you can't say it like this, I just feel like, how far have we gotten to, like how far away have we gotten to apes bashing each other over the head for annoying each other, that you think you get to dictate how I speak? Like, clearly we need the Stone Age again.
I'm triggered when people tell me how I should feel. Like, you shouldn't feel that way.
Right.
That's wrong.
Right. The audacity.
Yeah. How dare you?
Emotions are biological events. You have to move through them. You don't get to choose them, and you have to move through them.
We're going to Phony Friends. If you would like to join the show,
Laura
please
gave
call
us
in. Now, while we wait for somebody to call in, Laura, dear friend Laura, hello. I know, Spirit Mother, has traced down the roots of catharsis, which is Greek. I got that. Can we all just...
Should we bow down, or do you want us to?
Just appreciate my male recall.
Would you like to explain that to us?
Yes.
Okay.
I will explain to you what a woman has dug up for us in the chat. It's Greek for purification or cleansing. Isn't that beautiful?
It is beautiful.
Like a cathartic event to you is a way to
Cleanse, yeah.
So dead on.
I love that.
It was a hot word on the SAT. Did you ever?
Catharsis?
Yeah, catharsis. I learned that in high school.
So while we wait for you to call in with your question, let's just keep talking about triggers.
Yes.
Here's another one. This is one of mine. The holidays.
The holidays can be very upsetting for people.
Wow,
for
the
sure.
holidays is not a fake trigger.
It's a real one.
Yeah, that's a real trigger.
Yeah.
Because if you think about how many experiences that you have as a young, impressionable person, man, there's some good opportunity in the holidays.
There's also so much expectation and so many.
Who here is a Grinch?
No, I love Christmas. And I
Really?
listen, my father.
Grinch?
I'm like quasi Grinch right now after my mom died. Yeah.
My father died on Christmas morning, and I still love Christmas.
I thought everybody
Really
hated
claimed
Christmas until I dated somebody who had two parents and loved Christmas. I was blown away. Like I was like, you are a real Christmas elf.
But I have 0 parents, and I love Christmas. That's possible. You can get there too.
Yeah.
There's hope.
There's hope.
Possibly.
There's cookies and Christmas lights, and it's all cozy.
Okay. Now, if you experience yourself getting triggered, yeah, I'm done talking about Christmas. I hit my limit. I'm ready to go lock myself in a room now.
Jesus. For 8 hours.
If you find yourself triggered, what should you do?
That's a great question. So key to understanding how to manage the trigger process is understanding that when you get triggered, your stress response system is activated. When your stress response system is activated, stress hormones go coursing through your body. They are aimed to help you better prepare and respond to the threat that it is sensing. Now, it doesn't matter if that threat is that you're being chased by a wolf or the threat is abandonment by your partner. Your body is going to have the same response because the part of the brain that picks that up is not sophisticated enough to tell the difference between different kinds of stimuli. So knowing that, one of the best things you can do is aim to complete the stress cycle. And you can do that in 2 ways. You can either get rid of some of the stress hormones. The best ways to do that are physical activity, or counter the stress hormones with the positive hormones in your body, oxytocin and dopamine. And so there's a million different things you can do, but just to give you some categories, physical activity should be high on your list. That's something you can do if you get really activated. Connecting with other people, calling them on the phone, texting, getting into a group of people, even going into a cafe and sitting with people who you're not even necessarily talking to, laughing. So that can be done on your own or with others. Put on your favorite stand-up, go to TikTok or Instagram Reels or whatever makes you laugh reliably. Creative expression is another one that is also great. So if you can set aside 20 to 30 minutes to create something, you don't have to be the next Van Gogh. You can just draw a cartoon or doodle, but all of that will aim to release the stress hormones and help get you back to baseline.
Is angry sex a good break?
Samuel.
You said physical activity, and I'm
Physical
thinking
activity.
maybe a sex break might be good.
Angry sex when you're in a moment of conflict is not a good idea. Sex when you are feeling safe and connected with one another can be a great way to connect, increase both the oxytocin and dopamine, and release the physical stress hormones.
My professional opinion is different than yours.
Oh, shocking.
Yes. Me and all my learned years.
Yeah.
No, okay, so that's interesting. So,
But physical affection can be great too. So even just a hug.
see, that's what my therapist said when I was having issues with my partners getting triggered. He was basically like, you have 2 options, and one is to lean in and hug them and hold them while they're lashing out at you. Not like restraining, but just
Right.
like,
Just like a
it's
hug.
okay, it's
Yeah.
okay, it's okay. Or to remove yourself from the situation. There's no in
between. Yeah.
Is that good information?
Yeah, I mean, I think it depends on, I would want to be really careful recommending to a client that they engage in physical touch if they don't feel safe themselves.
Yeah, I guess he was saying like not necessarily physically hug, but like leaning in and being like, it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay.
For sure. I think when we try to navigate relational triggers, I think the first thing that we need to do, and it's in a list, so it's not the only thing, is to understand what's happening to the other person. And if you can get to that place of compassion, ooh, we have a phone call, then that's a great place to start.
Hello, welcome to Shitty Life Advice.
Hello, how's it going? This is Marge.
Hi, Marge.
Marge! Hello.
How's it going?
Good, how are
Hello.
you?
Good. Today's actually a pretty good day so far, but I just wanted to follow up to last week. Can I
Yes.
tell you guys something?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so I had shared that I've never been cuddled or had very little physical touch in my life. And I took a plunge yesterday, and I asked this person that I know if he would be willing to be like a platonic cuddle buddy.
Oh my God, I'm going to cry. What happened?
He said no.
Oh, Marge.
But I'm laughing because he was honest. He said, hey, I know it took a lot of courage for you to ask me that. Thank you for asking me, but I have intimacy issues, and I cannot be that person for you.
Okay, wow.
Oh, wow.
That is
So that was
beautiful.
like a win, right? That was like, I think
Yeah.
that could have gone, it couldn't have gone better.
Yeah.
And
That's so mature.
Yeah.
I agree, but I took the plunge, I took the leap, and it didn't work out. But also, I think it was a win that I even found the balls to do that in the first place.
I'm proud of
Absolutely.
you.
Me
Good
too.
job.
You have so
So-
much to be proud of, Marge. So much.
Hey, thanks. But that resonated with me, and I was like kind of proud of myself.
I happen to be a expert on rejection. That is one of my strong suits.
Say more.
Really?
Great.
Yes, it's a superpower.
Sorry.
So skeptical.
What does that mean?
I handle it really. I have encountered a lot of rejection, and I have leaned into it as something that I want to get good at, and it's something that I can honestly say I handle rejection really well, and it's become a superpower.
In what terms?
When I find myself liking somebody or crushing on somebody, I tell them right away, and that's often not reciprocated, and that's okay. I've done my part of expressing myself. I've had it happen where because I expressed myself, even though they weren't initially interested, they came back at a later time and were interested because I didn't blow the situation up with handling it poorly or acting like a dejected child or stomping off.
So you just kind of shoot your shot, and then you're like,
Shoot my
okay,
shot.
cool.
It's like, oh, okay, cool. Like,
Anyway.
can we go back to being friends? Like, I just wanted to tell you that. Or so I think it's something that I ask my son to do, and he has asked someone out. But rejection is a really important skill.
It is. And I think rejection, especially because we're such social creatures, can be really triggering because when you put yourself out there like that, especially in this vulnerable way, the way that Marge did, and you don't get the outcome that you want, you can start to feel like there's something wrong with you or that you're bad. And that's interpreted by the body as danger.
Marge, how do you feel a day or two out? How are you doing?
Good. I told him that I would much rather be friends if he, like before he responded, I said, hey, if it would change anything, I'd much rather stay friends than like lose you entirely. So I think for me, the honesty and the literally saying, hey, I'm just shooting my shot. I actually said that because
Good.
I didn't want it to be more than it was, if that makes sense. So I think that the honesty that I went with and the outcome, I think I feel good. I'm not really dwelling upon it. I've moved on.
And are you still gonna try again?
Yeah, maybe with somebody else. I don't know.
Love it.
I mean, nobody comes to mind, but also like if that presented itself, then I would probably try and take that shot. Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
I am
Thank
so proud
you.
of you too. That is a big deal.
Thanks, guys.
Marge, what are your big triggers? Since we're on the trigger episode.
I've been trying to think about that today, and when I've come to the conclusion that if somebody asks me to do something with a certain verbiage, I become enraged. So somebody in my circle asks me,
Now, when
Do
you say
you want
Is it like a tone?
when you say somebody, I'm trying to figure out: is that like a somebody, like you know exactly who you're talking about, or is that just a theoretical somebody? That would,
No,
Oh,
it's
there's a
somebody.
specific.
there's a specific somebody.
Somebody.
it's my coworker,
Oh, do you know?
and go ahead.
Are you able to trace that back? Do you know why it has such a extra reaction?
No, but this happens all the time because this person does this on a daily basis.
We can
Are
figure
they
this
just
out.
annoying?
We got a doctor here.
Say something needs to happen. Like I need to just whatever, take out the trash. And they ask me, do you want to take out the trash?
No.
I don't know what it is inside of me that fills me with a furious rage because I'd much rather them say, hey, will you please take the trash out?
It's like
And
a
it's
passive
the
aggressive
do you.
trigger.
Yes.
Marge,
And I don't understand.
I'm
mad now. I'm mad.
We can hear
I'm
it.
so
We can
glad
hear
we're not coworkers. I'm a wanter. I'm a do wanter.
Are you?
Yeah.
Do you want to?
Terrible
No.
habit.
Want-
Yeah. Nobody
I
wants to take out the
don't-
trash.
It's not even if it was a simple task that I would like to do. It's the
Oh no, we might have lost you.
Do you want to call us back?
This is a good reminder. We love mail. So if you would
And
like
I
to...
don't know why.
Ooh,
Oh, there she
she's
is.
back.
Hello.
Hello.
Marge?
Yeah.
You cut out for a second. Sorry, we lost you.
Oh, it's okay. I was probably because I was so mad.
I can't hear her very well.
Yeah.
She's only in one ear left.
My bad one.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. So, does this coworker know that you hate that phrase?
I have said it before. I have addressed it before, and it did not permanently change.
I think that
So
it's
they
possible.
changed their behavior.
Tell me if
shortly,
if this
but not.
resonates or doesn't. I think it's possible that what you're responding to is inauthenticity and condescension, and those
Yes.
things. Okay.
Don't women like those things?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. The best.
So it might be, if you haven't approached this person with that explanation already, it might be worth being a little bit vulnerable here as well and saying, look, when you ask things of me in that way, I experience that as condescending. That makes me feel less than, which my body is interpreting as threat and danger and makes me enraged.
Yes.
But what if
Oh.
you're saying that to somebody who wants to do that to you?
Oh, true. I mean, yeah, it's possible. But then they
And
have
then
to
you're
at least
giving
be,
them all the information of like what grinds your gears.
But the other thing is that then they have to they know that you know that they want to. And so they're now more vulnerable than they were before. I think especially in office
touche.
culture, people will want to try to hide.
And ranch culture. I think, Marge, don't you work on a ranch?
I do.
Yeah.
And ranch culture, indeed.
Okay,
You can also-
So what do I say?
I mean, okay, so I think there's two ways you can play this. I think the first thing you can do is be really vulnerable and just say, I know that this might not make sense to you, but when you ask the question in that way, I experience that as condescending, and that makes me feel less than, which is making my body have a response.
It does.
And then I think the other thing you could do is be snarky every single time. No, I don't want to take out the trash. Why don't you do it?
Wow.
oh,
I
it's
can't
like
do
a
that.
can you
yeah.
like may
Right,
it?
right.
Yeah.
And just, really address the question. If the question really is, do you want to? No. That's a full sentence.
No.
And then that person will have to change their behavior because the things need to get done.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I like the no. No, I don't want to.
I can't wait to use that on you.
That's kind of, that's a big one.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to have to go with option A.
I think that's the better one, honestly, because you're putting all your cards on the table. And when you're vulnerable like that, people it calls them to the mat to be vulnerable and
Oh,
authentic too.
but when it doesn't. Oh, when you continually
Yeah.
bring things up and it's
Yeah.
just a black hole of
Yeah.
no change.
Yeah. But then that's a lot of data for your file on that person and that workspace and that situation.
Yeah, a lot of
Yeah.
Eject
data
button.
on how much you hate them.
I don't want to hate.
Yeah.
But it's like enraging me just thinking about it. Thanks so much for asking.
You're welcome.
What brings you back to baseline when you get enraged like that at work? What do you usually do with it?
Displace it poorly.
Displace it poorly. We'll say more.
I kind of I sit in it. I sit in it, and then I'm not the best version of myself for the rest of the time.
Here's the thing we need to know
the shit,
too about
whatever.
sitting in stress hormones. When we marinate in stress hormones, they slowly erode all of the systems in our body. We are designed to have stress hormones and then do something with them. And when we have stress hormones and they just sit there, they cause inflammation. And so that may be, sometimes that's like a better motivator than being vulnerable in a relationship to improve a relationship that you don't really appreciate because you don't like this person, right? Do it for your self and your health.
Marge, I am so proud of you. Thank you for checking in with us. Also, another thing,
Yeah.
is it okay if I show everyone the picture of your in case of emergency box that you made?
Oh, yay.
Yeah.
I would
Okay.
see.
Absolutely.
We'll include that in the newsletter. Also in the newsletter will be a worksheet on loneliness
That's
and
right.
a worksheet on triggers coming up. To get the newsletter, you will have to continue to check back in to shittylifeadvice.com, which currently doesn't have a sign up for the newsletter, but sometime this next week, there will be one. So check shittylifeadvice.com. Isn't that some nice pressure for us?
It is.
Get that
live.
work in every day. Marge, thanks for being a part of my life and this show. And please continue to check in with us.
Absolutely, I will. Have a good day, everybody.
Have a
Bye,
great day.
Marge. Thanks for calling.
Bye.
Bye.
She's the best.
All right. We're going to finish off with some of the higher questions, the better questions that we have received this week.
Okay. Take it away, Tracy.
Take it away, Tracy.
Okay. If I'm in a group setting and the group forgets about me in any way, I fly into a rage. It's super unhelpful and not how I actually feel, but I can't control it. Please help.
Wow.
Okay, I love this because the way that this was explained is perfect. You are recognizing, so you've done a lot of work already. One of the misconceptions with triggers is that we are conscious of them. We are not always conscious of our triggers. You can be triggered by anything, a smell, a feeling in your body. So you're aware of it. That's great. You can check that off on the checklist. The next thing you're aware of is the fact that it's not how you feel, but it's how you're behaving. That's also critical information because you're recognizing that the response is coming from somewhere other than your rational mind. It's coming from the fear center in your brain. Now you just need to figure out a way to change the behavior. A great thing you can do with this friend group is to mention that this is something that happens for you and that though it may not be intentional, when you feel left out, you have a really uncomfortable response to that. And so can they do a better job including you? When they do invariably leave you out because they forget, then you can, now that you have all this awareness, the next thing to do is figure out how to get yourself back to baseline. So what can you do in that moment with the rage instead of letting it dictate your behavior?
Ditch your friends. You were not meant for social interaction. You were meant to be a cave person.
False.
Next question.
Okay. I have a coworker. Actually, no. I have a worker that I manage who gets triggered anytime they get reviewed because they can't handle constructive criticism.
Fire them.
Dead weight.
You need to have a conversation probably with HR present with that employee about constructive criticism. One of the things you can offer to them as a part of the negotiation is that you need to give them criticism so that they can improve. But if they would like to dictate how that criticism is given, if they have any preferences there, then you will take those into consideration. It doesn't mean you need to do them, but that kind of that idea, giving that to them across the table might make them feel more empowered and then able to take the criticism.
We are not culturally well prepared for criticism.
We are not.
No.
And that's terrible because then we don't grow.
I know. I'm trying to actively get better at receiving feedback, but damn, my first reaction is to take it personally.
Is it?
Yeah.
And you get defensive?
Well, here's the things that come up. One is I want a easy explanation rather than what's true. So rather than saying, hey, thanks for that feedback, I'm going to go back, search my heart, and I'll get back to you on what I think is going on. I want to have something for you right away. Next is, in a work setting, it's very hard not to feel like survival instinct, which is you are trying to take food out of my mouth and I'm going to burn your village down. But more recently, feedback has been a theme, and I am getting better at feedback.
I want to know more about how you're getting better because what you're describing is a trigger response. You're feeling threatened and like you're going to lose the connection.
Told me real leaders are constantly seeking feedback. That's how they lead. They're constantly getting feedback. And just she was such a badass. I was just like, okay.
So how do you accept it now? Feedback.
I think it was just a reframing of it for me.
Okay.
Is what happened, is listening to somebody that I admire say, I don't care about praise. I am constantly looking for the feedback. That's what makes me so powerful, was a big turning point to me. And I thought, myself, who considers myself a leader in the making, could have a lot of fun going on that journey. So it kind of gamified it for me.
It gave it purpose.
Yeah.
Like this isn't just destruction. This has meaning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like right now, your hair is bothering me.
Is it triggering you?
Yeah, it's like really bothering me. You have to move it over.
Is there a thing?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. All right, next
That's
question.
Constructive criticism.
Thank you. I'm here for it.
Okay, my ex-husband cheated on me. I'm not at all a jealous person, but my heart races whenever my current partner is on his phone in bed. Help me get over this.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. Just don't mind me.
Don't mind me.
Our stress response is shaped by our experience, and we need to accept that and understand that what you went through was betrayal that got imprinted into your body. And so you're having a response that makes a lot of sense when your current partner is using their phone at night in bed. That being said, that's going to be something that happens. And if it's not that triggers that response, it's going to be something else. So what I would work on in your relationship are ways that you can foster trust. And I would actually bring this to the table, not to change your partner's behavior, but so that they are aware of what's happening. Because sometimes things get fed into the dynamic.
Aware of what? Aware of like, hey, your phone use bothers me.
If I was sitting here, oh my God, if I was sitting here and I was having a panic attack silently, as my friend, wouldn't you want to know?
Yes.
So
as your friend.
Yeah. So it's not so that you dictate their behavior that they can't then use their phone at night. It's that you're letting them in on what your experience is, because it's real and valid. It doesn't then give you this idea that this is true about your partner. Trauma is a truth that tells you a lie, says David Morris. I love that sentence. And the truth is that you are vulnerable in this relationship and that betrayal could happen again. And that's terrifying.
Trauma is a truth that tells you a lie.
Yeah.
But then
That's a winner.
if you add a step to that, sorry for interrupting.
No.
But
Are
I
you
feel like
womansplaining?
if I would say something like that, it would be like, you shouldn't feel that way, which is another trigger.
Well, so that has to be worked through as well. So you
Okay.
would say like, hey, I know this is irrational and this isn't going to make sense to you, but when you pick up your phone at night, it throws me back to the time when I was cheated on. And I get this really kind of crazy, intense response. And it's 10 o'clock at night and my heart is racing like I'm working out. And the other person says, you shouldn't feel that way. Well, okay, let's stop shooting all over ourselves.
Yeah,
I do feel
shitting.
that way and I'm having an actual physical response. Let's figure out a way that we can get me back down to baseline.
Man, that's so supportive. I like that. Okay.
These things need to be negotiated. They can't be, when you have a trigger, it's not that then dictates the behavior in the relationship. Or it's that you then, okay, there's something real in the room. How are we going to negotiate around it?
Okay, so if you are having extreme distrust because of a traumatic event, like getting cheated on, should you be really putting somebody through like that process? I don't know the answer to this.
I do.
But God, that if somebody was saying, hey, like I have super bad trust issues from my last relationship that mean every time you touch your phone, I'm going to get activated. That's a pass.
That's your decision.
Yeah.
But I think like what you're getting at is this question of whether or not this person is capable of being in a relationship if they're that triggered. And I think the answer is yes. The thing that's the great irony of trauma is that we are so often traumatized relationally and we heal relationally. So when I've seen this with clients, with couples that I work with, what we will do is create something manageable for both partners in that situation that then actually is aimed to foster and build trust, so that in a couple of weeks or months, then that trigger dims or goes completely away. And the other added benefit is that the couple is now closer.
It just seems like such a huge ask.
It's an ask if you're saying, don't ever look at your phone. It's not an ask to say, I want my responses to be considered.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, in terms of if you are dating somebody with cerebral palsy, right? There's like an extra step, which may or may not work for you.
Totally. And we all get to have preferences and
Yeah.
needs, and that might not work for everybody, and that's fine. As long as you communicate that. Totally.
What's the next question, Tracy?
I'm triggered when my brother tells me that gaslighting does not exist. Here come the glasses.
There's a
Don't
lot.
mind me. I don't know if I have anything.
Can you say that again, actually?
I'm triggered when my brother tells me that gaslighting doesn't exist.
Okay, so gaslighting does exist.
Is this an episode?
We should have a whole episode.
We should have a whole
on
episode.
This is a
gaslighting.
great reminder to look at our March upcoming
Yes.
episodes, which is, wow, good job, Reese. I forgot what the shortcut for that was. So today is triggers. Next week we have unbroken. After that we have sabotage, and then trauma bonds. I guess gaslighting is not one of them. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Should we do a gaslighting episode? Comment below. Okay. Sorry, MC. Please keep going.
This is another word that gets used in such egregious ways. Like every time someone disagrees with you is not gaslighting, but this sounds like an experience of actual gaslighting.
Yeah.
And so, and that can be very triggering because gaslighting is designed to make you crazy. Like that is it's an emotional manipulation tool, and that's what it's designed to do. So, I mean, I'm not sure what to tell you in terms of what to do with this with your brother. I think you can go the vulnerable route or the snarky route. And the vulnerable route would be to say, look, you can have your own opinion about gaslighting, but when you tell me that my experience of gaslighting is not real, that's wildly dismissive, and that makes me really upset. And if your brother cares about you, then hopefully that matters. If he doesn't, then that's important data for you to have, because you're wasting time on a relationship with somebody who doesn't care about you.
How would you handle it in a funny way? Since we have brothers.
I would gaslight right back.
What would you say?
Well, I don't need these glasses, apparently.
Touche.
I do this with my students when this is harmless gaslighting, but I'll say, we can do it right now. Tracy, it's Wednesday.
Yes.
It's Wednesday today?
No.
Are you
Today's
sure?
Tuesday.
I think it's Wednesday.
It's Tuesday.
It's Wednesday. We decided to film on Wednesday instead of Tuesday because of my book, remember?
No.
It's Wednesday.
It's Tuesday.
You're so sweet. It's Wednesday.
My watch says it's Tuesday.
Steve Jobs, the Apple Watch.
Well,
is wrong.
I like to start on time and end on time. We are running out of time. However, if you would like to continue the conversation, please subscribe to our newsletter. It has fun behind-the-scenes photos that our intern Katie takes. Remember to like, share, and subscribe. And while we leave, today's episode is on triggers. We're going to leave you with MC's take-home prescription.
Somebody call a doctor.
I need you to do two things and check back in with us over the course of the week. The first is to think of your stress response as a thermometer. You have a trigger thermometer. What does it feel like to you when you feel totally relaxed? What does it feel like to you when you feel a little bit activated? What does it feel like to you when you feel strong activation? And what does it feel like to you when you feel extreme distress? If you write those down and put them in order, then you will have a lot of access to information that your body has been trying to give you your whole life. The second thing I need you to do is make a list of things that you know you can realistically do when you are at peak distress that will complete the stress cycle. So I want you to write down physical activity and then 2 or 3 things you can reliably do when you're feeling activated. For someone, that might be to run on the treadmill for 20 minutes. For someone else, that might be to do a dance party or walk around the block. People that you can connect to, I want you to make a list of those. Things you can do for creative expression, and things that you can do that will make you laugh. Do all of those things and then check back in with us next week.
Thank you so much for joining us. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Look at these little fingers happening right here. That is great. Also, we have a newsletter called Not So Shitty Life Advice. It has the best parts of this discussion. Sign up for that newsletter at shittylifeadvice.com, maybe. We have a worksheet on triggers that will be going out. Yeah, show us that worksheet. Oh, yeah.
Dun, dun, dun.
Science-backed, amazing, and until then, see you next Tuesday.